The idea of touching your own body to bring it pleasure, that is such a beautiful concept. That's so loving and so kind. Like, I want to experience pleasure in my body. I want my body to feel good. I want to know like what my body needs. Hello and welcome to the Pillow Talks podcast. We're your hosts, Vanessa
and Xander Marin.
I'm a sex therapist with over 20 years of experience.
And I'm just a regular dude. We share the ups and downs in our relationship while giving you step-by-step techniques for improving yours.
Make sure you subscribe for your weekly double date full of totally doable sex tips, practical relationship advice, hilarious and honest stories of what really goes on behind closed bedroom doors, and so much more. It's the sex education you wish you'd had. Today, we are taking it back and answering some of your most frustrating challenges about the very first topic that I became known for in my career as a sex therapist, which is female orgasm. So way back in the day, Buzzfeed called me the Orgasm Whisperer. I've been interviewed as a female orgasm expert by Oprah's Magazine, the New York Times, Goop, and Vogue. But before we get into any of your questions, I want to tell you a little bit about my own journey with orgasm, because I know people make a lot of assumptions about our sex life with me as a sex therapist. I actually really struggled with orgasm. So I figured out how to make myself orgasm pretty early on, but I could not figure out how to get there with a partner. And I remember my very first starting to become sexually active with my boyfriend. Like, it was a really great circumstance. We loved each other. We cared about each other. Like, I knew that he cared about wanting me to have a positive experience. But I really remember that disconnect of us starting to have sex those first few times, and I'm talking about intercourse, and feeling like, this is not happening. And why is it not happening? Especially because it felt relatively straightforward for me to get there on my own. So it felt very embarrassing and really shameful. Like, I started feeling like something's wrong with me. And especially, I know that there are a lot of women out there who have never had an orgasm at all. And a lot of those women feel like something's wrong with me. I'm broken. For me, being able to do it on my own, but not being able to do it with a partner, even though I knew my body is capable of this experience, I can do it, there was still this feeling of whoa, something must really be wrong with me if I can't get there with a partner. What is this disconnect here? And so for me at the time, I remember very quickly, very early on, making this decision of, I just need to fake it. Because even in this loving, trusting relationship, it felt too embarrassing to say I'm not having an orgasm and I don't know what to tell you to do to make me orgasm. Nothing seems to be working. It felt too embarrassing to say that. It just felt so much easier to fake it. And so I fell into this pattern that I think so many women do of faking just because it seems easier, and faking in a lot of different circumstances, long-term relationships, but also, more casual, dating relationships. At the beginning, when you're with somebody new, it just feels so much easier to fake. You want it to feel like the two of you are connecting. There's this chemistry, things are flowing. And as a woman, I wanted to feel it feels weird to say, I wanted to feel easy, because I didn't want to feel easy. We have a whole bunch of other crap that we're taught about, don't seem easy, don't be a slut. But I also wanted, once I had decided to have sex with somebody, I wanted it to seem like we were clicking, there was chemistry. It was just natural and simple. And so it just felt so much easier for so many reasons. But I also really started to dig myself into a very deep hole that started to feel harder and harder and harder to get out of. Now it's okay, a few years have gone by. I've been faking for so long. I faked, in every relationship. How do I stop doing that? And then it started to get to the point of well, now I feel like I'm, it's kind of embarrassingly old to say I've been faking it. And then, I'm 18 years old, starting to do, research projects, getting an internship in the sex therapy field, entering this field. and I'm still faking for many years, like there was this whole other layer of imposter syndrome on top of that. Like, how can I be, a sex therapist, pursuing this career, wanting to go back to grad school, and I still haven't like figured this out on my own. So it caused me a lot of distress. Like looking back at it now, especially now that I have gotten to the point where I can very easily, readily orgasm. Like it's so wild to look back at that and imagine all of those years of feeling like something was horribly wrong with me, feeling like it was hopeless, like I was probably never ever going to get there. But fortunately, I finally had this experience with a partner it was the final straw for me. It was like, I am not faking anymore. I cannot do this anymore. The next person that I am with, I'm promising myself here and now, I am not going to fake. And lo and behold, that next person was Xander.
Ding, 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 ding. Though, to be really clear, that is not to say that we didn't have our own struggles with orgasm at the beginning because Vanessa just described what it was like for her with partners in the past of, wanting it to be easy. And I mean, that was very much my experience being sexually active too, especially in a relationship, is like, wanting sex to be this kind of like easy, breezy thing, this natural thing. And it had always felt so natural. And I put that in quotes, so natural with past partners. I now understand many, many, many women have a similar experience to Vanessa where they also want things to be natural and easy. And, when you're having intercourse, which greatly prioritizes male pleasure over female pleasure, that doesn't leave a lot of space for the woman to, have it be nice and easy, unless maybe they exaggerate a little bit about what is going on. And so when we first started having sex regularly, I was like, why isn't this just so easy? And it took us a bit of time of kind of figuring out, okay, how do we actually, while having intercourse, while having foreplay, how do we really make sure that we are on similar timelines, that Vanessa's getting as much pleasure and as many orgasms as I am? And I'm so glad that we went through that because our sex life is so much better, so much better because of that. And man, like it's just crazy to think about what it could have been like. What it could have been like if that hadn't happened, if you hadn't hit orgasm rock bottom before me.
Fall is officially here, and that means it is the best time of the year to stay cozy.
In fact, we are very cozy at the moment in bed, recording this podcast wrapped in our Cozy Earth sheets and Cozy Earth duvet cover.
We are absolutely obsessed with our Cozy Earth sheets because they have so many incredible features. Temperature regulation, they're super breathable, so you sleep several degrees cooler. Durable weave fabric that won't pill. It is actually guaranteed for 10 years. The most important, superior softness. You will not find softer sheets than Cozy Earth sheets. They're also responsibly produced, and they have a major commitment to durability and quality. All of their products have a 10-year warranty. We started with Cozy Earth sheets, but we have recently been checking out their clothing as well. We both recently got their bamboo pajama sets. We also tried out some t-shirts, hoodies, other pants. Like everything that we have tried has been unreal. The softness, the coziness. If you just want to rip off all your clothes and put on something really soft and cozy, Cozy Earth is the thing for you.
Oh yeah, I cannot wait for it to get colder. I'm just going to live in those Cozy Earth pajamas.
They also have brand new puffy sheep slippers. We have not tried those out yet,
but
I am excited to try those out. You can go to cozyearth.com/pillowtalks and use code PillowTalks for an exclusive discount for up to 40% off. Now, if you get a post-purchase survey, please say that you heard about Cozy Earth from Pillow Talks. Wrap yourself in luxury this fall with Cozy Earth. Again, you can go to cozyearth.com/pillowtalks and use code PillowTalks, that's one word, for an exclusive discount of up to 40% off. So the thing that really drove me nuts for all those years, especially like once I entered the sex therapy field, I still had years that I was faking it. And I'm in this field, I'm studying, I'm researching, I'm doing all this stuff, and I was not finding any actual resources that would help me.
I'm sure that you were like, okay, I'm like in this field, I've got to be able to find the answer easily, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I just wasn't. I'd find stuff that was like, oh, well, you just have to relax. Don't think about it so much. You're just up in your head. And I'm like, okay, great. But like, what do I actually do? What are the actual techniques that I do to help me get there? And so that advice, like, it actually made me feel so much worse because it made me feel like it was just this super simple thing. Like, oh, stop worrying about it so much. It's like, well, first of all, that's actually not an easy thing to do, to just like stop thinking about something. But also, like, there were times where I felt like, okay, I'm not thinking about it, or I am so relaxed right now, but like it's still not happening. So it just drove me nuts.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm hearing you describe that advice of don't think about it sounds like such horrible advice, because then it's like almost the advice is like asking you to kind of like take yourself out of having a sexual experience with the other person. Like, okay, what if I'm not supposed to think about it? What, are you supposed to just like lie there?
Yeah,
and
no,
like let it happen to you? Like, that, like, what would that be like, if you were doing that and then it's like I'm having sex to you? I'd be like, hey babe, like where'd you go?
Yeah.
Where are you? What's going on? Is everything okay? It just seems like a recipe for disaster. The only thing that I could see that advice kind of serving is like, yeah, well, we don't really have an answer, and so it's better for women to just like not think about it, / like don't care about it so much, / eventually just give up.
So once I finally figured out how to do this whole orgasming with a partner thing, I was able to figure out some freaking techniques all on my own, even though it sucked and it was really hard. Like, I figured it out. Now, like, the natural thing for me was like, I have to share this. I need to share this information with other women, because I spent so long looking for it and found nothing and felt so frustrated and sad and broken. So like, I want to share all these tools and techniques and resources. So I ended up creating Finishing School, which was the very first online course that teaches women how to orgasm. And that was in 2015. It was actually the second online course I ever created. The first one, like, I knew I wanted to teach female orgasm, but for some reason I had it in my head that women would not want to buy like a female orgasm course.
It's too much.
So I made a female pleasure course. So I did that first, and then I was like, screw it, I need to make the orgasm course. So that was 2015. Over the years, it was featured and reviewed in Refinery 29, Glamour, Bustle, Huffington Post, Lifehacker, Elle, Marie Claire, Cosmopolitan, Prevention Magazine, so many more. Thousands of women went through it and had successful experiences and just raved about the way that it changed their lives. And then 2 years ago, we made the decision to close it, which was an extremely hard decision. Like, to go from, this was the thing that I was known for, the thing that like
the bread and butter,
the foundation of our business, to then have to make this decision to close it was really, really difficult.
Yeah, why the heck did we do that?
So we'll share that story at the end of the episode. But what I do want to say right now is it's actually back open.
Ho ho!
If you want to go over to vmtherapy.com/orgasm, you can check out Finishing School.
We just couldn't stay away.
In all her glory. So we will get into your questions now, and we'll loop back and tell you the rest of the story of why the hell it is open again now.
So we put up a question box on Instagram to ask women all of their orgasm-related questions. So I will do my best to impersonate these women asking these questions.
Wait, no. I don't know if we want that.
Do I need to orgasm?
Your lady voice is so weird.
Well, I have to falsetto it, because if I was able to speak in that high of a register normally, then I wouldn't have the voice that I have now.
Maybe just ask me the questions
all
about
right.
the impersonation.
So we're really going to start at the beginning with this question, which is like, all right, like, I know you're talking about orgasm, but like, do I really have to orgasm? Like, what if I just don't?
So I'll say my answer is no, you don't need to. I'm not going to ever tell anybody they need to do anything when it comes to sex or relationships. But I do wonder, why is it that you're asking this question in the first place?
Yeah.
So some people will say, like, I'll be totally honest here. Like, this is a topic that I love. I am a female orgasm expert. I love having orgasms. I think they're incredible. But I also think that we have gotten to this place as a society where we put way too much emphasis on orgasm. Like, the reality of orgasm is that this is, 2 to 20 seconds at the end, typically, at the end of like what could be hours spent together. And there's so much pleasure that you can experience with your partner, so much pleasure and connection and joy in all of those non-orgasmic moments. So like, yeah, the orgasm is fun, but that's not the one and only thing. So if you're somebody who's like, for me, just having a pleasurable experience is more important. I actually get stressed out about, working up to the orgasm, or my orgasms like don't feel that much more pleasurable than like, just the pleasure I feel throughout the experience with my partner. Like, sure, every body is different. Like, it's your choice. If you want to have them, you don't have to have them. But there are a lot of women who feel like they're not allowed to, because we get taught all of this crap about our bodies, how we're supposed to show up during sex. We're taught things like our genitals are weird and smelly and gross. So like, why would I want to let my partner like put their head down there or use their hands on me? We're taught to believe that we're supposed to prioritize other people's experiences over our own. So a lot of us struggle in the moment with like, oh my God, my partner's focusing on me. I'm taking too much time. They're probably bored. They're probably hating this. Like, I can't do it. And we're also like, the way that we are taught to have sex in male-female relationships, like really heavily prioritizes male pleasure. And so a lot of us are like, well, if intercourse is the thing, like, and that's what we're doing, and I'm just not having orgasms, like, I guess that's just a me problem, not an us problem. So I would get really curious and ask yourself, like, why is it that you feel like you don't want to orgasm?
Yeah, I'm also curious. I mean, if there's a differentiation between like, do I need to orgasm? If you know what orgasm is and maybe you reliably have them on your own, but you're saying it's complicated in partnered sex, and I already get so much pleasure out of that. I'm like not feeling like I need to be so focused on that orgasm outcome. But I do wonder if there's maybe a kind of different answer, or it's a different scenario for someone that's like never had an orgasm and asking, but do I really need to?
If it was somebody who's never had one, I mean, again, as a therapist, I'm very hard pressed to like say anybody needs to do any one thing. But like, I do think orgasm is such a cool experience. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so freaking cool that our bodies do this. I do think it's something that everybody should experience at least once. And again, like if it for some reason is not your thing, that's okay. But like, just knowing what your body is capable of, I think is really amazing. So I would encourage you to explore.
Well, I'm not a therapist. I mean, I would say, yeah, orgasm is pretty cool. I agree. I will just say, yeah, it's something that you should experience if you are, if you are willing to, if you're willing to try, because it's pretty awesome. Don't knock it till you try it. And I would even say don't knock it until you try it a couple of times, because the first couple ones might not be quite as good as the next couple ones. So I think it's definitely something to try. And once you have had that experience, then sure, if you really don't want to, then go ahead with that. But, at least try. It's really cool what our bodies are capable of. And yeah, it is an experience that it's hard for me to explain to someone that has never had one, like what that experience actually is like, but it's really fucking good. That's why people talk about them.
Yeah. So orgasm doesn't need to define your entire sexual experience. It's not the one and only thing, but it's definitely a very cool thing.
All right. Now we're just coming in hard. Do I need to masturbate in order to learn how to orgasm? It just feels kind of gross and embarrassing.
Yes, you do. So I have worked with thousands of women, teaching them how to have their first orgasms alone and their first orgasms with partners. And I think I can think of maybe 2 or 3 women who were successfully able to orgasm with a partner before being able to orgasm on their own. We just need to get to know our own bodies. And it's so much easier to explore your own body and figure out what kind of stimulation does it like? What do you respond to? What do you need? It's a lot easier when you're on your own rather than this, a lot of us feel this performance anxiety when we're in front of a partner. Is my partner getting bored? Is their hand starting to cramp or their tongue starting to hurt? When you're on your own, it's a lot easier. When it comes to masturbation, it's very important to recognize that we have been taught to be very ashamed of it. And I think women get much harsher messages growing up about masturbation than boys and men do. With boys, it's a sort of oh, boys will be boys, the
those
sticky
sheets
socks
are going to be all
and the
crusty.
sheets, yeah, and all that. But with girls, we think of it as this very only bad girls masturbate. That's a very shameful thing to do. I remember growing up masturbating and just thinking this is a horrible, horrible secret that I can never admit to anybody. And so most of us don't grow up exploring our own bodies. And I truly think that masturbation is one of the reasons why we have such a big orgasm gap, because men grow up touching themselves, figuring out what works for them, understanding what they need. They have this experience with their body that the vast majority of us women just don't have. So I would really recommend that you consider, why is it that you think masturbation is gross and embarrassing? That's just what you were taught to believe. But I think that there's something really sacred and beautiful about masturbating. And we're just about touching our body anywhere. Let's take it out of the genitals. The idea of touching your own body to bring it pleasure, that is such a beautiful concept. That's so loving and so kind. I want to experience pleasure in my body. I want my body to feel good. I want to know what my body needs. And I will tell you, learning how to get yourself off is such an empowering experience. Even if you are one of those, 2 or 3 women who can orgasm with their partner before they can orgasm on their own, it's not an empowering experience because you're not the one doing it, And it's well, and even what if you break up with that partner? Now you have to start all over again at square one, right? So I think that masturbation is incredible, and I think it's something that every woman should experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the interesting thing about masturbation and learning how to orgasm is, I think there's so many women that feel it's so easy for men, or they just naturally know how to do it. And I don't know about all men. I know for me, it still took me a while to figure out how to actually masturbate successfully and how to have an orgasm. It probably took me a year of fooling around with myself because no one sat me down to teach me how to do it. I don't know, maybe I was a sheltered child and I hadn't seen or heard of what the appropriate way to do it was, but I feel it was.
What were you doing?
I don't know. I was touching myself and doing things, but it was I didn't know about lube, and I didn't, I was oh, I spit on my hand, that's kind of good, but it was just, I don't know. It took me a while of trying different things, and I think what I didn't understand was oh, I need this repetition, this repetitive movement.
I like how you're doing it right now as we're recording.
Wait, no,
hand in the air.
Clear.
No, yeah, in the air. Not actually masturbating as we record.
Thank you for clarifying that. But yeah, the reason I share that is just because, it's once I started really figuring out how to do it, then it was oh, okay, yeah, now I can figure out how to do this really quickly and efficiently and really get down to it. But yeah, it's hard to imagine what it would have been like to start being sexually active with someone without ever having that experience of doing that. It would have felt kind of confusing and scary and and overwhelming, I think, to be getting into that with someone and not really even know what I need, what I needed or wanted. That would have just been a weird experience. And so, yeah, I can imagine that is a really tricky experience for a lot of women to be in, because a lot of women are going into sex like that. All right, let's move on. What is the connection between squirting and orgasm, Vanessa?
Great question. Okay, so first let's define squirting for people who have not heard the term before. So it is the release of fluid out of the urethra. The most important thing to know about squirting is that squirting and orgasm are two completely separate things. So we've been seeing squirting in the media, like in porn, a lot more often in the last 5 to 10 years.
Having a moment.
It's definitely having a moment. And so a lot of women think that now this is the new expectation for them.
And a lot of men think.
And a lot of men think
like,
too.
oh, well, I need to make her squirt if I'm really doing it right. The only way for her to really have the full ass orgasm is the squirting orgasm.
Full ass orgasm sounds like something different.
That could be something different.
But yeah, I mean, I think the appeal of it for a lot of people is it's so visual. You can see evidence. That must mean it was really good. You get an A+.
It's analogous to what happens to a man.
Yeah. But like I was saying, these are actually two totally different processes. So you can squirt without having an orgasm, and you can orgasm without squirting. Now, with squirting, we actually don't have a ton of research on, is it possible for every woman to squirt? It might be, but currently, there are only a small percentage of women do squirt. And a lot of women who do squirt don't do it every single time. It's not a reliable thing that happens. Of the women who do squirt, some women say it's a little enjoyable, but I would actually say the majority that I've talked to say it's more of an annoyance or an inconvenience. There can be a lot of fluid that gets left on the bed. A lot of women say I don't actually feel any sensation with the squirting, so it just kind of feels like a little bit of an annoyance. So again, I just want to keep harping on the it's not an orgasm, and if you feel like you had an orgasm but you didn't squirt, I hear so many women who are oh, it must not really have been an orgasm if I didn't squirt.
No, it's
That's
an
not
orgasm.
True. It's an orgasm. So if you want to explore squirting and see is this something your body is capable of? Is it an enjoyable, exciting experience for you? By all means, go ahead. But what I really want to caution against is feeling you have to squirt. It's this new bar that needs to be met, because that's absolutely not true. But if you are interested to learn more about squirting, we have a different podcast episode about it. It's episode 49.
All right. What is the difference between different orgasms, like clitoral orgasm, gspot orgasm, cervical orgasm? Is one better than the other? Is there an orgasm hierarchy?
Oh boy. So this is where I get really, really fired up. So first we need to take a little bit of a scientific detour to talk about anatomy. So the most sensitive part of the human body of any gender is the clitoris. The clitoris is actually the only organ that exists solely for the purpose of pleasure. The penis exists for biological, reproductive reasons as well.
And for peeing.
But the clitoris is literally just for pleasure. So what most people don't realize is that all fetuses, we all start off being the same gender, or kind of agender, up until we're about 11 to 12 weeks in the womb. And at that time, our cells start to split and create different structures. So these are actually what are called homologous structures. And what I like to compare it to is a ball of clay. You can take a ball of clay and you can mold it into a cup, or you can take that same ball of clay, you can mold it into a bowl. So it's the same ball of clay, but two different shapes that you end up with. And this is what happens with the clitoris and the penis. They're made of the same tissues. They just get made into different shapes based on whether that fetus is going to be born female or born as a male.
And then ultimately, clitori end up with way more capability to feel good than penises do.
Yeah, clitorises have 8,000 to 10,000 nerve endings, whereas the entire penis only has 2,000 to 3,000 nerve endings.
Ah, damn it.
So the reason why I love to geek out about the clitoris is because, let's be honest, the clitoris doesn't actually get a lot of respect. Whenever you hear the clitoris talked about, it's in this sort of oh, the clitoris. Oh, it's so hard to find. Does it even exist? Where is it? Why do women need this extra stimulation? When the reality is that is the most sensitive part of the human body of any gender. And so when it comes to orgasm, the most surefire path to an orgasm, if you have a clitoris, is with your clitoris. Just like if you have a penis, the most surefire path to an orgasm is stimulating your penis. So the cool thing about orgasms is that we can have them from a whole different kind of variety of stimulation all over our bodies. Like a lot of orgasm actually happens in the brain. So we can have orgasms, like people have reported having orgasms from nipple play, from anal play. People have corgasms, like orgasms when you're working out, like your abs, you can have like a spontaneous orgasm.
From
they
breathing?
have orgasms from running. People can do it from breathing. People have orgasms in their sleep. So like we can have orgasms in a ton of different ways. But if we're talking again about like what is the most reliable, surefire path to an orgasm, it's through the clitoris or through the penis. Now, what gets me really fired up is you see all these people these days talking about like cervical orgasms and vaginal orgasms, penetration orgasms, G-spot orgasms. And the way that these get talked about is as if they are a better kind of orgasm. Like clitoris is like, the clitoral orgasm. Like you're not evolved enough. You're not sex positive enough. You're not like spiritual enough unless you're having like a penetration orgasm, a cervical orgasm. And that is complete and utter horseshit. So if you are curious about your cervix and you want to see like, can I feel pleasure in my cervix? By all means, go ahead.
Know that many people feel the opposite of pleasure when their cervix is
a lot of
stimulated.
people feel discomfort when their cervix is stimulated. A lot of people feel pain when their cervix is stimulated.
Yeah, so some people might enjoy it, but don't push yourself to endure pain.
Exactly.
That's only going to drive you to not want sex.
Think of it in exactly the same way as like stimulating your knee. If you want to see if you can have a knee orgasm, go for it. Feel all the pleasure that you can in your knee. Like I'm totally on board for that. But just be realistic in understanding like for the vast majority of people, in the vast majority of circumstances, like stimulating your knee isn't going to be nearly enough stimulation to feel pleasure, much less have an orgasm. The same thing is true for the cervix, for your vagina, for your G-spot. Like, sure, go ahead and play with it. Feel whatever sensation you can, but it is highly unlikely that you are going to have an orgasm that way. I do want to talk like a little bit more about the G-spot in particular though, because a lot of people think of it as like this secret spot. Like all you have to do is find it and like push it like it's a magic button. You just push the G-spot and you're having this like wild orgasm. The G-spot actually is still the clitoris. The G-spot is just the name for the area that the internal legs of the clitoris. So one thing I didn't share when we were talking about the clitoris earlier is that little nub of skin that is visible to the human eye, that is actually just a part, one very small part of the clitoris. It actually extends up into the body. It splits off into two legs like a wishbone shape. And so the G-spot is just like the bundle of flesh around those internal legs of the clitoris. There's actually still debate between researchers and doctors around like, does the G-spot actually exist? Because again, it's not like a spot, like a magic button type of thing.
It's like a region.
Yeah, it's a region. And people say like, I'm not sure if it's worth, calling the region a spot. Like it's just not necessarily very helpful. So I want to clear up, the G-spot is not some magical spot and it's not going to give you like wildly better orgasms than the clitoris is.
And I would imagine that it's a person by person thing. It may be that there are some people where, the wall of the vagina there is very close to the clitoris, and that's and that person really likes indirect clitoral stimulation, and so it actually is highly pleasurable for them. And then there's going to be other people where it's maybe not quite as close, or it doesn't provide as much stimulation, and those are kind of like those anatomical differences are what they are. So you might hear from some people that are like, oh yeah, when you stimulate me in this one spot, in my G-spot, it's so good, but it's like not fair for those people to be like, yeah, it's so good and everyone has to do it that way. It's like, It's like not recognizing these, just like anatomical differences between all of us. And then, it instead makes people feel really bad about themselves because it's like, oh, well, this person is saying it's like 10 times better. And maybe it is 10 times better for that person, but that doesn't mean it's going to be like that for you. Like you can bang your head into the wall, or you could focus on, the things that actually are going to be really pleasurable for you and have a better time.
And definitely if you're someone who's never had an orgasm or never had an orgasm with a partner, you want to focus on the clitoris. Like just forget about the cervix and the G-spot for now. Focus on the clitoris. And then once you're reliably having orgasms that way, sure, feel free to explore your body and see all the pleasure that you can feel. But again, we have to be realistic that the clitoris is where it's at when it comes to pleasure and orgasm.
All right, I want to be able to orgasm without a vibrator, but I am struggling. Help. I feel like we hear this question from a lot of people.
Oh, yeah. We hear about vibrators all the time. And I always like to say, I think vibrators are amazing. They can deliver incredible stimulation. They can deliver a kind of stimulation that you can't get any other way. They can be a lifesaver for a lot of people. And like we were talking about with like the clitoris, the cervical, the G-spot, like there is no orgasm hierarchy. Like you're not a better person if you have orgasms without a vibrator than you do if you have them with a vibrator. So zero hierarchy. If you want to have orgasms without a vibrator, and I'm saying if because that's a personal choice that everyone gets to make. There are definitely plenty of women who say like, I love my vibrator. I love having every orgasm with my vibrator. And that's great. That's cool. But if you are somebody who wants to have orgasms in other ways, then we have to be thoughtful about how we use vibrators. Because here's the thing with vibrators. They're not addicting. But when you masturbate in the exact same way every single time, you kind of do start to train your body to need that kind of stimulation. You're like carving out a neural pathway that your brain just like wants to keep going down over and over again. And like the thing with vibrators is they can make orgasm very quick and very easy. So a lot of us, myself included, like when we use vibrators, become very lazy masturbators, where it's like we're just laying back. You put the toy on your clitoris, kind of lay back and wait for it to deliver a nice little orgasm to you. And so when you're making that transition to trying to orgasm with your hands or from your partner's stimulation, it can feel challenging because you're like, ooh, I'm having to work so much harder at this. And ooh, it's like taking a lot longer than it does. So it's more this like mental game that you're playing with yourself. So if you want to have an orgasm without them, I think that you need to spend time masturbating without the vibrator. And it is going to take time to learn how to orgasm with your hand. I just want to give you that heads up. I can't predict exactly how long it's going to be, but in general, like the longer you've been masturbating exclusively with a vibrator, the longer it takes to make that transition over to your hand. But you can do it. You just need to be patient. Keep trying. Don't freak out. And in general, I'd say like it's a good rule of thumb if you want to have orgasms in other ways to not masturbate with your vibrator or like have orgasms with your vibrator more than like, let's say 50% of the time.
All right, now let's get into intercourse. Are there better positions than others when it comes to female orgasm?
There absolutely are. Like by far and away, the most popular position for female orgasm is woman on top. And that's because it's a lot easier to get clitoral stimulation. Like one of the challenges of intercourse, like don't get me wrong, intercourse is really fun. It can be very pleasurable. It can feel very intimate and connecting with your partner, but it just does not create a lot of clitoral stimulation. Like you're getting stimulation in your vagina, not on your clitoris. So as a little aside here, like we've polled women in our community and we asked, like, is intercourse the most pleasurable activity for you? 91% of women said no, which is wild.
Damn.
Yeah. And a lot of that is, you're not getting the stimulation that you need. So the funny comparison I always love to make here is that intercourse for a woman is like a man having his balls played with. Like, it might feel pleasurable. It might feel fun.
Might get me kind of excited and stimulated in the short term, but not in the long term.
Yeah, for the vast majority of people, it is not anywhere near enough stimulation to reach orgasm. So that's what intercourse is for a lot of us women.
So it's kind of like a nice tease.
Yes. So we want to find positions where it's easier to get clitoral stimulation. So cowgirl is a great one for that because your bodies are a little bit further apart from each other. So you can touch yourself, your partner can touch you, you can use a toy, or you can even like grind against your partner's lower abdomen to like create some stimulation that way.
Okay, how about this one? After I have an orgasm, any desire to have sex dies and I just don't want to be touched anymore. Why does that happen?
That's a very, very common sign of an orgasm. And actually, if you're somebody, another common question that we get is like, how do I know that I've had an orgasm? One of the telltale signs is this hypersensitivity after the orgasm, where we just like don't want to be touched. It can feel uncomfortable, sometimes even painful to be touched afterwards. And it just feels like the experience is over. So that's super normal and common.
But that's not like 100% of the time for all women.
No,
right?
not for everybody. Like not everybody experiences this, but most women will experience like some amount of hypersensitivity.
Yeah, the
like
reason
you're like pushing your partner's hand away really quickly, or like, oh, okay, I'm done. But I think like men and penis owners feel that same way too.
Oh yeah, well I mean yeah, with men and penis owners there is an actual like chemical thing that is happening to like create a refractory period. All right, what about the other end of the spectrum, which is like multiple orgasm? How common is multiple orgasm in a single session?
So we don't have a ton of great research on this, but there are a couple of studies showing like anywhere from 12 to 42% of women are capable of multiple orgasms, but we don't have great data on like, how often is it happen? Is it every single time? Is it sometimes? Like the cool thing about female orgasms is that we are capable of having them right away. Like men have this thing that's called a refractory period where after they orgasm, they cannot have an orgasm right away again.
Except for a very small minority of lucky, perhaps, men.
Well, they still need time in between.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas a woman can immediately have another orgasm, which is really cool. But that being said, a lot of times we talk about multiple orgasm in the same sort of way that we talk about squirting, where it's like the bar has been raised, like,
the Holy Grail.
One is not good enough. Now you have to have multiple.
I was certainly guilty of thinking this way early in our relationship. I just thought it was so cool. Like, I mean, honestly, it was like I was jealous. Like, well, I want to be able to have that. So the next best thing I can do is give it to you.
And also, like, a lot of smutty books, and the multiple orgasm is very, very common. It's like at least 3 or 4 in every session.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, and porn, too. And it's like, well, most of that's fake.
Yeah. So I'll say, if you're somebody who has never had an orgasm before or can't orgasm with a partner, just focus on having the one. Like one orgasm is amazing and great. Multiple orgasms don't necessarily mean more pleasure either, which is the other interesting thing. Like I've experienced them, and for me, like each successive orgasm afterward, it just doesn't feel as good. Like you don't reach as high of a peak. So it's like, I actually never feel the desire to go for multiples because my first one is just like, it's good. I have a great time.
You want to be left with that memory.
Yeah. So I don't we very, very rarely try for them. So just focus on having one. And again, if you get to this point where now you're having them reliably and you're curious about your body and want to see what's possible for you, of course, explore it. But just don't put this pressure or expectation on yourself of it only counts if I've had 3.
All right, why is the intensity of my orgasm lower when I'm with my partner versus on my own?
This is an interesting question because it actually can be pretty different for different people. Some people say it feels more intense with their partner than it does on their own, but really it just boils down to the stimulation. It sounds like for this person, they might really have a honed in technique that they like to use on their own. So when they're with a partner, your partner's never going to touch you in exactly the same way you touch yourself. So it might be just those little tiny nuances and they're using a little more pressure than I do, or they're going a bit slower than I usually do, or they have a slightly different stroke than I usually use. But I like to say all orgasms are like snowflakes, no two are alike. So I wouldn't get too stressed out about them being, less intense with your partner than on your own. But definitely, like, if you want to help your partner get more fine-tuned and nuanced and like show them, the kinds of techniques that you like, or really be more communicative about like, a little bit faster, a little bit slower, like you can, definitely do that.
Yeah, I mean, you might just think about what type of stimulation are you giving yourself when you do it on your own. Compare that to what type of stimulation are you getting when you are orgasming with a partner, and are there ways to meld those two approaches? All right, Vanessa, how can I clear my mind and focus in the moment so that I can orgasm?
So first, what I want to start with is I just want to make sure that this person is not thinking that just not thinking about it is the path to orgasm.
Yeah, I was wondering
like I
that
shared
too.
in my own story, like I thought that was like the only technique, like just don't think about it. So I think let's make sure that is not the only thing. There are actual techniques that we need to use to reach orgasm. That being said, like I know, the idea of having a hard time being present in the moment, having a hard time focusing, like it's a very common frustration that people tell us about sex. And it's very understandable because most of us spend all of our days like thinking multiple things at the same time, multitasking, being super distracted. And so of course, like there's nothing magical about sex that makes it like we're instantly able to be super focused, even though we're not at all focused in our regular lives. Like our brains are just so trained to be thinking multiple thoughts. So I have 2 tips for you here. The first one is that we cannot control our thoughts. So one of the things that happens for people when they're getting distracted during sex is you notice a distracting thought pop into your mind, and then you start beating yourself up for it, and then you go on this crazy distraction spiral. Like you start thinking about, I need to bake cupcakes for the soccer game. And then you're like, well, why am I thinking about cupcakes right now? I'm supposed to be present. Oh, why? I can never be present during sex. I'm always so distracted. I can never focus. Like you just drive yourself nuts. But if we start from this place of like, look, we cannot control our thoughts. You cannot stop yourself from thinking. That's why the whole like, don't think about it advice is so dumb. Instead, the only thing that we can do is like notice that we're having a distracting thought and gently bring ourselves back into the moment. It's very similar to meditation. Like when you meditate, you're not just clearing your mind of all thoughts. Like you have the distracting thought, you bring yourself back into the moment. So you can just say to yourself like, okay, there's my distracting thought. All right, now let me come back into the moment. Or you can say to yourself, like, I forgive myself for having a distracting thought. Let me refocus and get pleasure, like refocus on the pleasure that I'm feeling in this moment instead. Another thing that you can do is repeat some sort of mantra to yourself. So I like having this phrase that I repeat to myself because for me, it's like a way to keep my brain distracted with something. But the key is to make it something that's focused on pleasure. So for you, it could be something very simple like, I deserve to feel pleasure. Or I want to focus on the pleasure that I'm feeling right now. Or I can take up as much time as I need to take up. Something like that like keeps you focused and rooted in the pleasure. And again, you're still going to have distracting thoughts. You're still going to have to bring yourself back into the moment. But giving yourself some sort of like nice reminder like that of like, I deserve to have this experience. That can be really nice.
One thought that came to mind, and this is sort of a question, if you are asking this question, like, this is a question for you. Like, is this coming up for you feeling like distracted in the moment, thinking about other stuff? Is this coming up for you when you are in the middle of like having or doing or receiving your most pleasurable sexual activity? Or is this coming up when you are, say, doing some other type of sexual activity? And what I'm specifically talking about is like intercourse without much clitoral stimulation, if that is, assuming that is not particularly pleasurable for you. Because I feel like we hear from a lot of women where it's like, yeah, well, I'm having all these thoughts come up when I'm doing this activity that isn't really that pleasurable for me. And I'm like trying to clear my thoughts so that maybe it can get more pleasurable versus, yeah, like, I don't know, I love receiving oral sex and my partner's going down on me and it's super pleasurable, but I keep having these thoughts and I'm getting distracted. Like then, yeah, absolutely go through those exercises that Vanessa just talked about. But if you are trying to be like, oh, well, maybe the reason why I'm not enjoying this not very pleasurable activity is because I'm having all these other thoughts. Consider perhaps you are having all these other thoughts because the activity is not particularly pleasurable. I'm thinking for myself, like, if you were spending like 5 minutes fondling my balls, I might not be having very many thoughts for the first 30 seconds. And I guarantee you, after those first 30 seconds, I'd be like, what's going to happen next? Why is she fondling my balls so much? This is kind of weird. Yeah, I would really like to be doing something else. Yeah, I'm kind of losing my erection now. Like, this doesn't feel very good. What else happened today? Oh God, I have to do that report for like, of course that's going to start happening for me because I'm not feeling very much pleasure. So I would really challenge you. Are you asking this question because you are struggling in those moments of high stimulation, or are you struggling because you're not getting a lot of stimulation? And if that's the case, try pivoting to an activity where you know that you can really enjoy it. All right, our last question, babe. I've never had an orgasm. Where's the best place to start?
The best place to start is finishing school. So I want to loop back around and tell you a little bit more about the story of why it is back open again. So we originally made the decision to close it when we had decided that we were really going to niche down into focusing on helping couples keep the spark alive in long-term relationships. Like, as a sex therapist, I love anything and everything related to sex, but we got to this point in our business where we decided, we really want to like carve out a specific niche for ourselves. And as a couple who's been together we're going on pop quiz, Xander, how many years is it this year?
We have been together for 16 years. We're going on 17 years together?
Yes, 17 years.
Are you sure about that?
No. Yes. We got together in 2007. It's 24.
Okay,
yeah.
but we're going on 13 years married, so wasn't it?
Yeah.
Was it 4 years?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. 17. That's even
17
better.
years.
Even better than I thought.
As a couple has been together 17 years and has been through our own ups and downs and challenges with our sex life and keeping the spark alive. Like, that really felt like the niche that we wanted to follow. And at that time, we had so many different courses.
Oh, man,
and
too many.
I mean, we still do, to be honest. We've been on a journey these last couple of years.
But we do have fewer.
Of really trying to narrow things down so that we're not creating this overwhelming experience for people coming to our website. And so we made this really difficult decision of like, okay, finishing school, it's a course for women. There definitely is content that you can explore with your partner, but it doesn't really like fit in that niche of couples keeping the spark alive in long-term relationships. And so we decided to close it down. We went through this whole process of closing it down. And I very quickly into the process started thinking, was that a mistake?
Oh my God, what have we done?
What have we done? And as time has gone by, we continue having women reach out all the time saying like, do you have anything to help with this? I really want to learn how to orgasm. We have women reach out saying, I've heard of finishing school. My friend took finishing school. My friend said it was so incredible. Like, can I get into it? I read these articles. I saw, these interviews with you. Like, I want to get into it. And I even there was a reporter that did a whole like personal piece. She hadn't had an orgasm and she went through finishing school, had this incredible experience, like wrote all these pieces on it for a whole bunch of different women's magazines. And like, she reached out and was like, where is finishing school? And like, even when we were closing the course down and talking about it, like on our Instagram stories, like we had all these women reach out saying like, why are you closing this? This course changed my life, like sharing all these incredible stories. And so, yeah, I've been like for a while now just thinking like, I don't know if we should we not have done that?
Yeah, did we make the wrong decision?
Did we make the wrong decision? And I'll be honest, I am not somebody who's afraid to say like, I think I made a mistake. I think I, want to change my mind. I think that's actually a really good skill to have, to be able to recognize that.
And the good news is that we can do something about it.
It is. So I think I made a mistake.
Yeah, me too.
I think, it doesn't exactly like neatly fit into our niche, but it's still.
But it kind of does, because if you are a woman in a long-term relationship and you are struggling to orgasm either at all or just with a partner, like that absolutely affects the intimacy. the connection and the sex life available to both of you in your long-term relationship. And so having these resources available for people that want to be having more and better orgasms in their long-term relationship, I mean, that has a ripple effect that extends to both people in the relationship.
So, long story short, finishing school is back open, and we are so excited to welcome you into it. We encourage you to at least check it out. It is such a cool course. Like, seriously, has gotten the best feedback, the most positive reviews and write-ups, like all over the place about it. And what I'm so proud of is that it's a really personal course for me too. Like, I've felt all of that pain of feeling something's wrong with me, something's broken, why isn't this happening? Why am I having all this sex that's like not for me, it's just for my partner? And so, now being on the other end of that and having gone through this really tough journey of having to figure it out with like no resources, I'm so excited that I was able to create resources that helped so many other women. And I'm really thankful that we are deciding to bring it back. So you can check out all the information about the course at vmtherapy.com/orgasm. But what I will tell you is that this is a very practical course. Like, you are not going to hear any bullshit about like, just don't think about it, just have a glass of wine and relax. Like, I will lead you through step by step exactly what to do to have orgasms on your own and with your partner whenever you want them. There are so many incredible exercises in here. And it's also a really great course because there's a streamlined version of the course where if it's just like, I want to get in and out as quick as possible, I just want to know the techniques for how to orgasm, I will walk you through every single thing. But there are also all these incredible bonus resources to really help you dig deeper if you want to into like exploring your relationship with your body, your confidence in the bedroom, asking for what you want, allowing yourself to receive.
Turns out these things are all interrelated and impact your ability to have probably more and better orgasms.
Yeah, so this is very comprehensive. Like, this is honestly like everything you need to know to have an incredible sex life, to like feel empowered, feel confident, feel connected to yourself and to your partner. Like, it is all in this course. So it's this kind of like choose your own adventure style to it as well. And we even have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there's literally nothing to lose. Like, give it a shot for 30 entire days. If it doesn't feel like it's the right fit for you, then we will get you all of your money back. Okay, I could talk about this course for hours. It's my baby. I'm so excited that it's back, but we will let you check out all the information for yourself at vmtherapy.com/orgasm.
All right, well, that's all for today's episode of Pillow Talks. Thank you so much for listening. Join us again next week when we do another edition of Smash or Pass.